All right, we made it through 2 wild recruiting weekends, and the groundwork is set for some commitments to start popping off. As Texas prepares for the SEC, there's some major positions we need to secure in the 2024 class. Texas is in the mix for a lot of guys, and the numbers crunch is already starting to play out. Where does Texas stand in the trenches on both sides of the ball? How are we looking for pass rushers? And which DBs is Texas looking to snag? Eric Nahlin, owner of Inside Texas, is on to give us the scoop on where things stand with some crucial players and some key spots. You know Inside Texas is the place to stay informed on your favorite team. So subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. Let's get the latest intel on these positions of importance as the picture becomes more clear. Without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, Eric? And now that we're getting into crunch time with the first position of importance, it's offensive line, and Kyle Flood is looking to shore up his side of the ball. And we're filming on Tuesday afternoon, and we expect some movement prior to this video going live. So what's the latest there?
Yeah, by the time you see this, Texas will have 2 offensive line commits. Nate Kibble committed Sunday evening, and Daniel Cruz just in the last few hours. So, obviously interior line's in a very good spot. Kibble's going to be a guard long-term, although he does have really good athleticism, got more of a guard build. He's a wide body. And then, Daniel Cruz is the center that Kyle Flood has been looking at for 2 years. I mean, they love him. We get asked a lot, why isn't he looking at a certain kid? Casey Poe is one that gets brought up a lot because he's highly rated. But this is the guy. Cruz is the guy that Flood has wanted for a very long time. And when Flood hones in on a guy early, he usually gets him. Now it's, let's see who's going to get that other guard spot. There's a couple of names to know. And then you got to figure out the tackles. And the tackles are going to be a little tougher sledding because they're looking more nationally.
Let's hit those names. Who's in the mix to fill out the remaining guard and tackle spots?
At guard, you got Mekhi Sana, who Texas has tailed off for recently. By the time viewers see this, it's probably going to be USC. That one shifted pretty late. Texas was the favorite in my view. Can't win them all. Then you got Blake Ivy, very athletic, not tall but long, very smart kid. Just a really athletic guard, going to be great on the pull. He's in contention with it. And then Eugene Brooks reminds me a lot of Malik Agbo in the 2022 class. A big, bouncy dude, good feet, really fun highlights. I think Texas is going to land one of those two. And then, all the focus is going to be on the tackles where they're looking nationally. They're looking east and they're looking west. Right now, I wouldn't say Texas is a favorite for either of them. A lot of people are predicting Georgia for Daniel Calhoun, which makes the most sense. He's from Georgia. And then you've got Brandon Baker, who's from Southern California, but he likes Oregon a lot where his brother played. So Texas has a little bit of an uphill battle at tackle. However, you're never going to get too worried about Kyle Flood recruiting. He's going to recruit late. He's got a huge stockpile of talent already. So he got a couple of good bodies in. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds, though.
Yeah, tackles are going to be key to watch as the season unfolds. Across the line, we have the interior guys Bo Davis is in on, and we're taking a lot of bodies there, so numbers are tight. As things crystallize post-OVs, what's the latest on interior defensive line targets?
Yeah, so defensive line has more of a numbers crunch than on the offensive side. And just like on the offensive side, a couple guys could we'll get clarity whether they commit elsewhere. It clears up the bottleneck, or if they pick Texas, then we have clarity that way. But right now, they've got a number of guys they're looking at. It's hard to parse out how they're going to fit. A lot of guys, they have different skill sets. You always have to know what how they project. If you need nose tackles, you got to get nose tackles, not 3 techs. If you need 3 techs, you got to get 3 techs. Fortunately for Texas, they need both. And so, there's not going to be a whole lot of concerns about redundancy, but you're not going to want to take 3 techs if you need 2 of each. So right now, they've got a number of bodies. Jaden Jackson was just on campus. I'm a big fan of his. Alex January was just on campus. Both those guys are nose tackles. Of course, January, his father played at Texas. He's at Duncanville. Big body, nose tackle, but has some pretty good feet. DeAndre Robinson, I'm a huge fan of. I think he's one of the most important prospects in the entire class. He reminds me a lot of T'Vondre Sweat. He was on campus 2 weeks ago. That's a Texas-Florida battle. I'm not sure Texas is going to be able to win it. Tough to pull out of that region. But, if anybody can do it right now, I think it's Bo Davis and Texas, given the effort that they are. It's a 2-team battle. At least that's the way it appears right now. Dominic McKinley is a very popular name. 3 tech. McKinley reminds me of Alfred Collins coming out of high school. Similar body, similar athleticism. Collins hasn't played well, but the talent has always been evident. So we'll see what comes out of that. But McKinley, I think Texas right now is in a good spot. Maybe even the leader. They've got, you're going to have OU that you're concerned about. Todd Bates does a good job of selling his success at Clemson. LSU, I think, is faded, but You can never entirely rule them out. There's still a lot of meat left on the bone for this cycle. TJ Lindsey, I'm very high on. I think he can play edge to start. He plays defensive end in high school. He's just transferring to IMG, where I think Texas is starting to create a bit of a groundswell there with the addition of Jarrett Gibson. I think TJ Lindsey might be Texas and Auburn. I think he would be a very valuable piece because he can play Jack his first year or two. And then if he grows into a 3-tech, well, you need those too, so it doesn't really matter. Malik Blockton's one of the more underrated players that they're looking at. That's Texas and Auburn. Blockton's brother played at Auburn, but they won't overlap, I don't believe. He reminds me a lot of Malcolm Roach in the later stages of his career, not necessarily as a high school recruit. After Roach got up to about 285 pounds, I think that's what you can expect out of Blockton. He could play some defensive end if you need, but he's more of a 3-tech long term. Melvin Hills is another one. Versatile guy, plays 3-tech, could play 4-eye or 5-tech. It's Texas versus Ole Miss. I think Texas is probably the leader there. I think Texas has probably been the leader there for a long time, maybe since he was offered in January. They want these versatile guys that can play in a 4-man or 3-man front. They've got a number of options. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to shake out, and I'm not sure the staff is either.
So we got to watch them too. And now let's cover edge. Fans were going crazy over edge this weekend. Texas has made some noise there with several important names. Now that the post-high visit is wearing off, what's the more clear view of where we stand on pulling those guys in?
Oh man, I know Edge is the headliner for the class. Even though defensive tackle is every bit as important, it hasn't always been easy to find edges in Texas, and now it seems like Texas in a good spot, and they're actually falling out of the sky. I think a high-level national recruit is actually moving into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm not going to put his name out there yet, but that might be another option for Texas. Let's see if that comes to fruition. But everybody wants to know about Colin Simmons. I put in an RPM for him late Saturday here. I just feel like Texas is the leader. I think Texas is probably going to find a way to get that done. And I might even increase my confidence between now and the time this video goes out. The thing about Colin Simmons, if they do get a commitment, you're going to have to hold on for dear life because every school in the country is going to continue coming after him. So get excited, celebrate it, but it's like a win. Put it behind you after that and then put your game face back on and get ready for a long, hard-fought recruitment. Zeno Umeozulu out of Allen is another priority. I think Texas leads there. OU is in it. OU does a good job, of course, selling their time in Clemson. But, I think the family gives them a bump. I think academics gives them a bump as well. So I think Texas is in a really good spot for both Colin Simmons and Zeno Umeozulu. They're also looking at Jordan Ross. He is, I don't get too excited about that one. And he's highly rated. Georgia, Tennessee, I think Florida's in it as well. Texas has made up some ground in that one, but, you can't expect them to land all these guys. If they get Colin, the class is going to be a win no matter what. You get Colin and Zena, and it's a slam dunk. And then there's Danny Okoye, homeschool kid out of Tulsa. Very talented guy. To me, he's a 5-star. I mean, it's hard to say that because he's playing against, again, the lower competition. But I believe he was a Jenks kid, and Jenks, of course, is one of the better programs. He moves incredibly well. He's strong. I don't know where he's going to end up. Texas is in it. LSU is in it. Oklahoma State might have some tailwinds. OU has fought its way back in it. That's one's going to play out for a long time, and that actually works in UT's advantage. They can figure out what's going on with Colin and Zena and then figure out their numbers from there. And then, of course, Nigel Smith. Get asked about Nigel Smith a lot. He's going to take official visit for his first game, for Texas' first game, and we'll see how that goes. To me, he is probably the clearest Jack that they're recruiting, where TJ Lindsey, I mentioned earlier, has a chance to play there. Nigel would play there his entire career. I think he's a great fit. Man, he likes a lot of schools right now. OU, Ohio State gets mentioned, Penn State, and, of course, Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M just lost their defensive end coach, Terry Price, who passed away. That is very unfortunate. We want to say RIP to him and the Aggies. He was a very good man. It's very sad. I know that hurt Nigel quite a bit. So we'll see how it all goes. Texas, I think, is trailing in that one, but I think they can make up a lot of ground. If he's not committed by the end of summer, he does take that official visit, then we're going to be watching another high-level recruitment.
Buckle up, man. And of course, you need those DBs on the back end in the SEC, and we have a lot of lures in the water there as well. Joseph and Gideon often focus on guys with the ability to play multiple positions if needed. First, let's start with the guys we think project best to pure corner. So where are those players at in their timeline?
Yeah, there's another number crunch at defensive back, especially with the way that they recruit. They like really good coverage players. So you're always a corner first. You're a corner until you're not. Right? They got a commitment from Santana Wilson, who I think is a stud. And then Wardell Mack, stud out of New Orleans. I think he's got a good chance to play star if he picks Texas. Right now, that's Texas versus Florida. LSU's still in it, of course. LSU started to make a little more room in their class in recent days. They had a ton of, I think they had 4 corners and 2 safeties, and now they're down a safety and down a corner. That might be in anticipation of making a move for Wardell. But that one sets up really interesting because when Sark got hired, everybody in the world wanted Corey Raymond to get hired at Texas. Sark went with Terry Joseph, and now you got a Corey Raymond, Terry Joseph battle for a New Orleans kid. So get your popcorn ready for that one. I think Texas has a very good chance to win that one. So that corner, they're in very good shape. Kobe Black. I think he's more likely to stay in the region, but Oregon and Ohio State are making a spirited push for him as well. And he may see A&M at the end of the month, but there's also a chance he's committed before the end of the month. So we'll see. I do think Texas still leads for Kobe Black, but they've got a little more work to do.
And then we have more of a general defensive back, players that can project to corner, nickel, or safety. How are those battles progressing after this past weekend?
Yeah, the first group I talked about I saw as pure corners. This group is a little more versatile, but that being said, Corey Gibson, I think he has a very good chance to stay at corner. To me, he's a longer, faster version of Anthony Cook. Was a little limited when it came to speed, and that's why they moved him inside. I don't think Gibson's going to have that issue with speed. He's a 10.66 guy, and I think he's going to fill out a little bit better too. I think there was a lot of noise about Clemson. He certainly likes Clemson. There's no doubt about that. But I think Texas remains the team to beat. That could be done early July. I think he's going to make an announcement. Now, a lot of people assume he's given a silent. I haven't heard that he's a silent commit. So obviously, Texas still has to get this one over the line. But pretty clear to me that UT's the team to beat. Jordan Johnson-Rebel, they're childhood friends, going back to Johnson-Rebel's at IMG, but he's also originally from Fort Worth. So I do think that there's a bit of a consensus between those two in liking Texas. Whereas Corey Gibson is more of a corner that could play safety. I think Jordan Johnson-Rebel is more of a nickel that would play safety. But because they look for corners at Texas to play nickel, I think Jordan's probably more likely going to play safety, but he is versatile. Really like his makeup. He's instinctive. I think he's got a chance to be a tackling machine back there. He takes very good angles to the ball carrier. He rides with intent. Very good player. And of course, man, if they got Jarrett Gibson and Jordan Johnson-Rebel, you got two guys from IMG while you're working on two other guys, and TJ Lindsey and Jaden Jackson. So there's a chance to not only build consensus at Texas with some of these guys, but he can go back to IMG and start to build it too. Selman Bridges is similar to Corey in that I do think that he's a corner first. Kind of misjudged Ryan Watts at first when I first saw his high school tape. Saw him at 7-on-7. I said, oh, yeah, he can play corner. I think Selman's a more obvious candidate to stick at corner than even Watts was back then. Now, he's not as physical as Watts, and Watts' physicality makes up for a lot of his, I would say, lack of ideal corner twitch. I think Selman has some of that ideal corner twitch. I think he's faster than Micah Hudson. We know Micah's not slow. So it's Texas and Arkansas for him, I think. So some of it could come down to just pure competition. Do you want to be the fourth corner to commit at Texas? That doesn't mean you're the fourth most talented guy in that class, but you're the fourth guy in that class. Or do you want to be the top dog at a school like Arkansas? I think that's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. It could come down to just who starts to commit first. If Selman decides before Wardell Mack, maybe they are able to pull in Bridges. But we'll see. They're not going to get all these guys, but they got a chance to get most of them.
And then we can round out the numbers crunch with the guys that we project to be more pure safeties. What are you hearing from those two guys?
Yeah, Texas has two safeties they've targeted. Both were on campus 2 weeks ago for their official visits. It's Miles Davis and Joshua Lair. They're both bigger size guys. I think Davis, I was underselling him a little bit. Really athletic, good in coverage. Also a striker, can play either safety spot. Just a really good player. Gets his hands on the ball, is dangerous after the return. I do think that right now that's an A&M leads. That one, I think it's I would say fairly comfortable. He just came off his official visit, so A&M's still fresh on his mind. If he sticks to his August 25th timeline, then maybe there's time for Texas to keep chipping away at that one. But I think they're also in good. They're in good shape for Lair. To me, he's kind of he's similar in his style of play to B.J. Allen. He's a very, very physical striker. It's if you don't watch much huddle, but you want to be entertained, he's the one to watch because he's just laying guys out. Comes downfield really quickly. He can be an enforcer back there. He's a good athlete. There's just not as much evidence of him in coverage as there is of Miles Davis. But I think Texas is going to land one of them right now. I would say Lair's more realistic. But again, numbers are a factor here. Texas is in a good spot for 5, 6, 7 guys. Probably not going to be able to take all of them. So they might have some hard decisions to make. That's evidence of a good recruiting strategy from both Flood, Bo Davis, and even PK. We don't give PK enough credit for, I think, the big board that he has right now. And then Terry Joseph, he's been a good recruiter since he got to Texas. This is probably his most impressive big board recruiting cycle so far.
This is an intriguing cycle, man. Inside Texas board was going crazy this weekend, so congrats on that. And let everybody know where they can join in on the fun.
Yeah, come follow this recruiting information at InsideTexas.com. We had a wild thread over the weekend for the official visit. I think we had over 750,000 views just for one thread, and that was only with getting 2 commitments. So they're about to get a whole lot more in the coming weeks. Inside Texas is definitely the place to be to stay up to date on all that. We have a killer staff. We work nonstop. We put out more articles than I think anybody, pretty much anywhere. There's it's 300 articles a month, at least probably 315, and we're gonna have more as the season ramps up. So we stay busy, and it's a lot of fun when the staff is busy, and they're about to see some fireworks on the recruiting trail. So now's a good time to check out InsideTexas.com.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nahlin. Head over to Inside Texas and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.